Welcome back to Podcast 1313. I'm Dave, and I'm here with Spark, the inbred survivor of the Queen of Ranroon. And we're talking about Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. So go ahead, you're going to say something?
Yeah, thanks for your little colorful introductions every podcast. I appreciate it.
Of course, it's a staple of Podcast 1313. Me shitting on you at the very start. It sets the mood.
Don't worry, karma's going to come back. Don't worry. I just have to decide when and where.
Yes.
So you sound like you're laughing.
I'm not laughing at all. Yeah, I'm feeling very good. Okay. So we read Han Solo and the Lost Legacy, which I think I said last time, it's kind of like Indiana Jones, but like a Star Wars tale focused around Han Solo. And that's pretty much what we got for the most part, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but this book, I'm going to say off the bat, was better than Han Solo's Revenge. And it actually made a lot more sense in the Han Solo-esque kind of adventure that he would go on. So it's... And the rating, obviously, Stars End is number 1. But I think number 2 would have to be this book.
This is not
and number 3, obviously, Han Solo.
This is not a bad number 2 at all. Han Solo's Revenge just suffers from a weak / nonsensical motivation for Han. And just kind of just confusing stakes altogether.
It was like some... It's like for tabletop, right? Let's just picture some idiot was playing a Han, but not like Han. You know what I mean? Like, someone who had no idea how to play Han was playing Han. Like, going to, like I said, the getting ambushed by himself and running into a fight without thinking, all too well about the situation. It's kind of like that book.
Yeah, he was going...
I gotta get my 10,000. Yeah, my 10,000 crits.
He was going off half-cocked a lot in that book. But this one, Brian Daley is much better with his characterization. Much better.
Yeah, much better. And there's a lot of cool stuff in this book that I really did enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you want to say before we just get into going through the plot?
No. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so it's an unknown amount of time since the last book, but enough that Han and Chewie are fucking broke as shit again, so they're working for this guy called Grigman, and this is outside of the corporate sector, because as you know from the last one, they raised a lot of hell in the corporate sector, so that place is a fucking hot zone for them. So now they're in this place called the Tione Hegemony, which is a real backwater of planets, if you ask me. It's real out on the fringe. Most people are poor, backwards, some primitive, and they're working for this Grigman dude who is this really... You see, he styles himself as like a stunt pilot, some dude who can do jetpack tricks and air shows, right? But like Han comments that this guy is only like second rate, and he only has like any acclaim because he's on these literal backwater worlds doing these tricks for these people who don't know any better, who haven't seen actual quality.
Yeah, and he also has like this air of like really like of arrogance and like being a dick for no reason because he's Mr. Hotshot pilot out in the middle of nowhere, but in reality, he's not really that good of a pilot. But as you said before, they're only amazed by his stunts because they don't know any better.
Yeah, I like how we go from Han and Chewbacca mounting, other way around, just Han and others mounting a rescue on one of the tightest prison facilities in the galaxy to them just working for this douche.
Well, it keeps coming back to he described it in the book where Han always like the credits from like their past previous adventures always goes towards like the Falcon and its maintenance. It's like the Falcon, it's kind of like a money sink because there's so much credits going into the Falcon.
Mm-hmm. But they love it, unfortunately. So yeah. We're introduced to that Grigman dude. Han doesn't like him. Chewie doesn't like him. The both of them, however, are informed by one of the kind people on the planet they're on, called Brigia, that there's someone trying to find them. And they go to meet with this alien named Hissal, or Hissel. and he's a Brigian. They describe him as like being tall, lanky, with purple skin, I believe, red eyes. I kind of like imagine the head of like the stones on Easter Island, but tall and purple. So he meets with this
Yeah,
Hisal.
that sums it up.
Yeah, he meets with this Hisal who tells him he's a representative of the University of Rudrig, and he wants some legal cargo actually hauled for a change, but he kind of wants it down on the down low, and he was recommended by someone who knew Solo that he would be the man for it. And it's basically just like educational materials and shit like that that he wants delivered. I'm kind of fuzzy on why he wants this to be on the down low. Like, the planet opposes the delivery of these materials, but did they ever outright say why?
It was pretty much okay. This place is run by something called the New Regime,
Yes.
and it pretty much dumped all of its credits to buy a Marauder class cruiser. And they're kind of like this really outdated, like pirate-esque kind of ship, but out there at the top of the line. And the guy was describing that most of the credits are going to like the military for like the maintenance of the ship, and a lot of it's gotten cut from the university. But the Council of the New Regime didn't want them to waste, I think, credits or something trying to get these materials for some odd reason. But they didn't want them to get what they're trying to get. It wasn't exactly too clear, but they just ruled on it like, yeah, you can't do this.
That sounds about plausible for the stupid backwater government to do something like that. Because these dudes are just literally like university volunteers, and they're literally having to go to like some criminal smuggler just to get educational materials on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Daly described. He wrote it pretty well. It's like a lot of these backwater planets. Once they get their hands on a lot of credits, they're going to have to buy something for the military, and that's in chain reaction. And the other backwater planet is going to do the same, and so on and so forth. So I guess if you live in something called a new regime, and then they're pretty much kind of like more of they're not the freedom loving kind. They're kind of like a close ecosystem kind of dictator type ship.
Yes. They're still
So
somewhat beholden to the Empire, but semi autonomous.
the Empire does, funny enough, this really backwater like area of the galaxy. It's still the Empire still semi reaches out to it, but it's not like there's not like a heavily presence. There's like obviously the Empire is known there, but it's not like like the mid rim or semi outer rim worlds where there's a lot of Imperial traffic. There's probably barely none out there, but the presence is still known.
Yeah. So he makes a delivery to Brigia here, and when they touch down, the new regime government swarms the Falcon. They bring out all these soldiers, and they're completely surrounded, and that's where he kind of gets the rundown that, okay, these are the guys who don't want these materials here. And so Han manages to coerce him into backing off the military units, and he gets the leader on board called Keek, who's leading this little detachment of Brigian soldiers. And now Keek, when he's talking with Han, let me just go through my notes here. Yeah, he's basically telling him like, "Oh, you were just duped into bringing on this contraband on the planet. We'll let you go, but you're not going to get paid. We're going to take your cargo, but we'll pay you in this Brigian currency that is literally only useful here, and it's just complete garbage outside of the area."
Yeah, and it's funny enough. Han was like, he was bringing up the Imperial charter and like you can't do that, because of we had an agreement with this guy. And you can't change the rules because yada yada yada. Oh, here's another interesting thing that we forgot. This backwater planet also hired a consultate like a financial group to help with their financial institutions there, and they recently start printing money. Well, I don't know if I'm jumping too far into this, but how was shown this inspector? It's like, yeah, this paper money is kind of useless. Let me show you why. Because they have like this scanner that lets you like duplicate materials or some sort of one of those gizmos. So Han pretty much puts this fake money, or not really fake money, but the planet's funny money, puts it in this machine, and it comes out, and he's like, oh, well, it doesn't look exactly like, but you could program the numbers in and get the right materials, but yeah, we can pretty much print our money from this, blah blah blah. And
Yeah,
of course, that gets the inspector guy a little heated.
threatening to destabilize their economy, which I guess wasn't already stable to begin with.
Yeah, which it kind of thinks whatever consultation team they hired, I think they got scammed. To be honest with you, that's what Han pretty much said to himself too. I remember is like, yeah, seems like the consultation team didn't really do a good job.
Yeah, well, these guys didn't strike me as too bright anyway. So,
No, because remember, you also forgot a small detail here that these aliens were dressed in human garb, and a lot of it wasn't even
yes.
fitting them correctly. And like they had like weird secondhand medals they're wearing. It's like, Jesus, where do they buy their stuff from?
Yeah, they were not the fucking brightest here at Brigia. But this precipitates a fight between Han and Keek after there's some talk between the two of them there, because he's not budging on this shit, Han. He wants to get paid and in real money. And Keek, the little bastard, he appeared to have come on board unarmed, but he had a little scroll with him that he actually revealed to be like a concealed blaster, and he was trying to use it on Han. There's a brief back and forth and fight on board, but they eventually subdue Keek. I'm just going through this as quick as I can because this is the least interesting part of the opening, TBH. But they subdue
Yeah.
Keek, and they're able to get what they want through that little hostage negotiation that they do off screen, and then they fuck off out of there. I'm surprised they actually got out of this situation like with no repercussions because they didn't leave the planet after they held up, and got paid using Keek. They just went to a spa. So it's like, all right.
Yeah, it's like, job well done. Let's go get a manicure and, rub some mud in her face for our pores and whatnot.
Before I forget, there's actually one notable thing from chapter one. Han gives a nice little fuck you to Grigman before he goes and meets with his Saul, because he goes over to one of the people here on Brigia at the air show, and they borrow their sky barge, which was full of fertilizer. And as Grigman is getting ready or no, I think he finish? I think he finished doing his little air stunts and landed. And that's when Han
Yeah.
came over, shows him up in this rickety sky barge full of fertilizer doing tricks. Then, to cap it off, he dumps the payload all over his ship and open cockpit. Then he fucks off.
Yeah, and actually, he also won the little air show trophy
Yes.
too, and some like really like third hand ship that used to, you know, carry fertilizer. So it's pretty funny.
Yes. Also, one of the natives in that area, these giant green gorilla looking things, said Negatron, which I thought was fucking aggressively 80s.
Yeah, just think of like Planet of the Apes, but like a different shade rather than the typical ape colors here on Earth. And with a cigar in its mouth because it kept on smoking like constantly throughout this entire encounter. So, we have that, picture in your head.
Negatron. Far out, Solo.
Optimus Prime here.
Yeah, this spa scene was also kind of weird. Just like imagining it. It's like you never really think of like a
Yeah.
spa scene in a Star Wars movie or something. But
Yeah.
he went
And
into a little bit
like,
of detail. He got
actually,
fucking pimped out there.
yeah, like Han got undressed into this like spa, like shower s thing, and it was describing him like almost like it, like the heat from like the water almost searing his skin, but it fluctuated between hot and cold and like pulses and like all this other like really fancy stuff. But I
Hmm.
think Chewbacca got the more fancier treatment here at the spa.
Yeah, he got his shit all puffed out. He got nice and groomed, man. Got the hook up there.
He also forgot he also has the and all this you have to remember from the last book. Chewie wanted the captain's hat or an admiral's hat from the Victory Star Destroyer. So he also threw that in the negotiation. So Chewie is looking pretty, pimped out with his little admiral hat on and his fur, like, really poofed out and everything.
Yes. So after that, this is chapter 3 now. When they come out of the little spa there, Han, they're separated. I think Chewie's still in the spa actually. So this is just Han. He runs
Yeah.
into Badur. Badur, I think that's how you say his name. Badur and Hasti. and Badur is an old friend of his. They actually both used to be in the Imperial military, but they also did some more like unsavory type of criminal type jobs in the past together. So he's kind of like an old contact of his that he kind of shakes hands with and gets reintroduced to. And Hosti is another woman who's with Badur here, who he introduces, and Badur is basically giving Han the rundown that, hey, we got this job here, and we need a pilot for it, and you kind of owe me kind of a life debt, because I saved your ass this one time that they don't really elaborate too much on. And Han is kind of like reluctant to accept this job as a pilot for Badur. So he kind of brushes him off and says, nah, I'm not going to do this. Hosti, this woman here, you can already tell from her little peanut gallery comments between their interaction that she doesn't fucking like Han. Because she says something to the effect of like, oh, I told you he wasn't going to accept, let's just go. And Badur is kind of disappointed. And what's
Yeah. Hosti is she has a lot of peanut gallery-esque comments about this book, which are kind of irritating in some. And you also have to remember that this is the classic expanded universe redhead in a Star Wars book.
Dude, Han has gone
classic.
Through, like, he's run the gamut of like miscellaneous female companions for these books. He's had a blonde with blue eyes in the first book, a black woman in the second book, and now he has the classic Mara Jade redhead in this one.
Yeah, well, like unlike more, I mean, I guess Nora and her have something in common is they tend to bitch a lot, but like Hosti is kind of more of a irritant than anything. Like she just has to like, you know, she's the type of person that has to say her little smart ass comments, like especially like when they're not called for.
Yeah. But yeah, they part ways there. Han meets back up with Chewie, and first he runs into these two university girls. I forget their names. It was Keely and Vitur or something like that. These two like university sorority girl types who are like studying what is a Wookiee, or they're university students. No one cares what their fucking majors are. They're sluts. And they mistaken Chewbacca as the captain of the Millennium Falcon because he had the corporate sector authority captain's hat that they got out of their little hostage negotiation last book, and he has his fur all puffed up, so he's looking real nice. And Han decides to be a bro and kind of like play wingman here and go along with it. So when Chewie comes back, he's like, "Oh, hey there, Captain. We got the whole company and crew on standby for you." So you know he's trying to help out Chewie get some tang.
Yeah, they're hurting for a Wookiee squirting person.
I mean, shit, that should fulfill the life debt immediately. You know, being a wingman. There's the life debt, and there's the
I know,
debt.
man. Fucking a Wookiee might break those two in half. You know, just
let's see. Well, that's
shit. Death by.
Well, you see, Chewbacca's gonna take him to like a waterbed they have on the Falcon, and it's not gonna be filled with water. It's gonna be filled with Bacta. See, he's got this all.
Oh my god.
You know, this is the '80s too. It probably has a fucking lava lamp.
It probably has like the typical like mirror on the roof.
Oh my god!
On the ceiling, so you can see all the action. You can see when the Wookiee breaks her pelvis. You know.
Instead of smooth jazz, he's listening to smooth jizz.
You know, he's listening to heavy metal, fucking ripping and tearing that shit.
The Doom soundtrack. But now that Han actually gets back with Chewie, he kind of mentions. See, this is where Han's kind of subconscious willingness to be a good guy kind of kicks in, because he lets slip to Chewie that, hey, I ran into Badur and he's calling his life debt for us to come and help him, and I don't want to do it. Knowing that if he mentions it to Chewbacca, he's not really going to budge on this and basically compel him to join with Badur. Because he kind of asks himself in his head, oh, why did I mention it to Chewie? I knew he was going to be like this. Well, it's because you're not a dick, Han.
Yeah, Han likes to act like a dick, but he's that typical, like, he acts like a dick, but he actually wants to do well, in a way. He doesn't want to be, like, the bad guy.
No. but he loves talking about how much of a bad guy he is.
What would that be like categorized as? It's not really like an anti-hero, but it's more like I don't know. Like what would you even call that?
I think this would fall into anti-hero, TBH.
Would it?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially like A New Hope Han, because he's actively trying to
Yeah.
fuck off in A New Hope.
Yeah. Well, I got my money.
I got my 10,000 credits.
I didn't have a credit. I don't care about the rebellion, are you? I just want my money.
But Han, what about getting revenge on the Death Star?
I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that Han didn't go some convoluted plan like, oh yeah, they put a tractor, it's like a tractor device with the Falcon. I have to get revenge.
Yes. Go into this whole random fucking trek across the galaxy that'll just end in basically the ending of A New Hope anyway.
Yeah.
But it'll be, at points, it'll just be incomprehensible to read.
Yeah, like no matter how many times you read it, you're like left thinking like, what the hell did this mean? Like, what the hell happened?
The Death Star doesn't even explode at the end.
It just turns to like it just like spins really violently and just goes off somewhere.
Han is going to be holding Vader and Tarkin hostage.
Instead of a victory class, is going to be a super star destroyer hovering around. I want my 10,000 in your captain's hat.
Okay.
Okay.
I want Vader's helmet.
I want Vader's helmet.
Oh shit. Okay, we've gone off the tracks here. After Chewbacca compels Han to go back, they go back, and this, in Chapter 4 now, is where we get the actual plot of this book. Because Badur gives them the rundown about the Queen of Ranroon. Now, Spark, why don't you go on and do this section here? I've been talking too much.
The Queen of Ragoon is
You fucked that up on purpose.
yes. Well, anyway, it pretty much is a treasure ship belonging to a being a long, long time ago called Zim the Despot, and pretty much Zim was a hut, I do believe, that kind of was like the big dick of the galaxy. Like we're talking like thousands upon thousands of years ago, like a
Mm-hmm.
long, long time ago. Well, he was famous for having these vaults. And the way to describe it is like when he conquers an area, they normally have vaults made for him for people to bring him tribute or that sort of stuff into these vaults. And they have like these treasure ships that kind of pick up the loot or the booty, or whatever you want to call it, and ship it off to where Zim wants it. Well, this ship that they're looking for it disappeared, but so it went missing. Well, they recently got, what was it? It was a data, some arcane
Log disk.
yes. And he was describing to the group there, like Baldur, or is that how you pronounce his name, Baldur? I don't
Badur.
know, Baldur. Pretty much. He was describing, yeah, we got the kind of like we know where the disc is, where the last known location of the ship is, and there's going to be like a lot of this treasure and whatnot from Zinda Despot's, days and all that stuff. So they're going to have to, go find it. But wasn't it the redhead sister,
Yeah,
Atsani?
Lonnie. Yeah,
Yeah,
Lonnie is the because they work at the mines there on
yeah,
the planet where she found the log disc, but Lonnie was killed.
yeah. And they also introduced kind of like the bad guys here, which is I'm not even going to
They're
pronounce the
kind of
names.
forgettable, honestly. It was
Yeah,
the woman Juwak, the brother Rala. They were both
they're
twins,
twins.
and they had
Yes.
their muscle Egom Foss. I think you say his name.
Yeah, yeah. It was some.
He was a
They were
big,
forgettable.
yeah, he was a big alien called a Hook, which I guess is the first appearance of that species. This is also the first appearance of the Drawl species in the expanded universe too. So, kudos for that.
Yeah. So they basically have to go to some planet and pick up this disc that Hassani's sister left them, so they can go off and find the location of the ship and plunder the booty.
Yes.
But of course, with all adventure tales, something the sister died, and now because of these people, these gangsters from this mining place want to get the riches for themselves, and as they're talking here, uh, I don't know if I skipped anything. Just correct me if I
I'll
do.
just also mention that they need Han to get them there, but
Yes.
there's a whole little caper because the reason they know about this is because Badur and Hosti were told by Lonnie before she died, but Lonnie, the actual log disc, she was afraid of the random searches that the criminal gangster minor dudes were doing, so she hid the log disc in a deposit box in like one of the vaults there that she could
Hmm.
check in and get later. So that's why they needed to do this whole caper and whatnot, formulate a plan. But they just need Han to get him there.
Yeah, and of course, Han agrees, but does a negotiation for like what it is? Does it? I thought it was back on the ship, ain't it?
Yeah, the negotiation for who gets what happens back on the ship.
Yeah. So let's backpedal. So after that, Han's like, okay, I'll do this for you. But there, they we forgot to also mention that the transportation that Chewie and Han got is kind of like this really fancy. In my mind, it kind of remind me of like a hover limo in a way.
Yeah, I see. It's weird because didn't they at one point describe it as being wooden?
Yeah, yeah. It's some okay. I'm just gonna call it a fancy hovercraft. Is what I'm gonna call it.
Some
That's
type
basically
of
what it is.
vehicle that is apparently made of wood.
Yeah, and it's very fancy because it was described as because Choi was trying to make the two college girls very moist with his captainess, his little hat and everything. But they're getting on board the fancy hover vehicle where the limo, with these criminal guys come behind them, and before they can leave really fast, a Baldur here gets shot with a stun bolt.
Hmm.
Right, so he's stunned. He's like, it's like, oh, and they kind of drag him on board the ship. And Han, in return, takes out his blaster pistol and he shoots them. He shoots at the guys, and of course they duck and cover and get on the ground and expect Han to shoot back at them or anybody to shoot at them. So they get back on board the fancy hover vehicle and they have kind of like this cool little chase throughout
Yeah,
the.
it was pretty cool. They described Han like in the back, breaking the glass with the butt of his pistol and just shooting out at the fuckers pursuing them.
Yeah, and they had and here's another weird thing I wanted to also mention. Um, needle nose. It was like needle blaster or needle
Needle
nose
beamer.
blaster. Yeah, needle beamer rifles that were shooting at them, which is weird if you think about it. So it's like instead of like the regular Star Wars bolt you're thinking of, just think of like a really short little beam, like phasers from like Star Trek or like destructor rifles from Jedi Outcast or Academy. If you play those, just think of like that.
Yeah, needle beamers.
It's just weird. Not the needle nose, needle beamers. It's just weird hearing that in a Star, you know what I mean, in a Star Wars book.
Yeah. Well, I remember in the Lando Calrissian adventures, he had a needle something too, Lando, like a pistol, a needle shottle, a needle beam or something as well. So it carried on to there.
You know, call me weird, but like when people describe like needle kind of weaponry, it reminds me of the Halo needler. Because like I don't associate like needle weight beams and whatnot with like Star Wars. That's more like, in my opinion, like more like a Halo or Star Trek type thing. But I guess if you're talking like destructor rifles or something like that, I mean, I guess, but you know, I don't
Yes.
know. This is me.
Yeah. So they eventually elude the killers in the black limo there, going off like a cargo bed ramp or something. There was some ramp they went off, and they land safely away from them. And they eventually reconvene back on the Falcon in the next chapter. And that's where, let's see, yeah, that's where they get into, okay, how are we gonna divide up the treasure? There's a lot of back and forth between Han and Hosti here again, because she doesn't
Yes.
think Han is really worth, how much is he, as much as he's getting, and
Yeah.
she's kind of entitled to get like a bigger piece since her sister kind of died to give him this information. Oh, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Yeah, but like Haas, she's just being a real cunt to Han here. Like she
Yeah,
just like I normally like a lot of characters don't like run me the wrong way, but she just run me the wrong way. I just want to tell her to shut up. Like, come on, bitch. Just
mm,
come on, man. There's no reason to be like
I
because she
mean,
barely even knows Han, and she's like acting like Han like kicked her dog or like punched her in the face. Like, bitch, you don't know
I
Han.
can totally buy that she would eventually get upset with Han and his general demeanor, but just off the bat, man, I don't like
Yeah,
this guy.
Yeah, it's like, I hate that shit. Like, you being a dick for no reason without even knowing the person. Especially when the person even rub you wrong or do
Yeah,
anything rude in the first place, and you're acting like they personally insulted you. It's like, get out of here with that shit, dude.
yeah. So before they all get together and head off to the planet Delalt, where this log disk is, Bardur introduces one more person to their party here, and that is Professor Skinnix. I don't know how you say it, so I'm just gonna say fucking Skinnix.
Yeah,
And he's gonna be needed for translation as well as any history related stuff, because this Zim to Despot stuff goes to like back like thousands of years before
yeah,
even
it's
the
like tens of
Republic.
thousands. Like Zim the Despot was a very long time ago.
Yes. Also, I wanted to mention I actually looked him up as you were talking, and I thought Zim was a Hutt too, but he was actually a male human.
What?
Yeah. He was captured by a Hutt, but he's a male human from Argai.
Do you have a picture of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what he looks like.
He.
This is I thought he was always a hut.
That's what I thought as well.
Well, goddamn. All right, let's see what he looks like.
Let's get this handsome gentleman here. My dog is gonna go apeshit. Awesome.
Yeah, she's probably surprised too about Zim.
What? He's a human?
Huh.
Yeah, he's got dark
See,
hair.
yeah, he also got the little flavor saver on the bottom of his chin right there. Okay.
Yeah, some facial hair.
Yeah. Not the most manly looking, facial hair, but to each their own.
Well, you wouldn't say that to his face.
Well, he's a despot who can just send out his minions.
Yes.
But yeah, I always thought he was a hut. Okay, well, I'll be damned.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's some Berenstain Bear stuff right there.
Yeah, that's what I'll say. Definitely.
um, Hosty, when they're en route to this area here. Let me roll it back. Hold on. Because in chapter 5, after they introduce Skinnix and all that, Baldur has a little aside with Han here, and he lets him know, hey, there's some dude asking around about you out in the galaxy. And Han puts together, oh shit, it's that dude Galandro, who I guess wants to hunt me down now for using him as a hostage, the other book.
Yeah, I want to rant about him, but let's do that later. I think there's an appropriate point where I kind of got pissed off at that character, but we will discuss it down the road because I have a healthy amount of vitriol I want to spit at this guy.
Yes. So now that Han is aware of that, he immediately starts doing some training with Blue Max taking control of one of the little floating remotes from A New Hope, and is going to be shooting like some test lasers at him. And he's trying to test his quick draw, his dodging, his shooting. Because as soon as he hears word of Galandro, he's like, oh shit, I'm going to have to grind up, get some XP before I fight him.
You that Skinx is what you're calling him. You also forgot to mention his species was also unique. It's kind of like in my opinion, like kind of like a big, like fluffy caterpillar.
Yes.
His species was kind of like that. He was also an expert at. Did you also say what he was? Like the expert of the
Yes.
old. Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah, but I always thought his species was pretty cool. But then I was like, oh yeah. At first I was like, oh god, this another useless esque character for this journey. But
He actually did pretty well, I guess, besides
yeah,
Hosty, at making them all stand out. All the
yeah.
characters
Like
of his group here.
I kind of like Skillix to be honest with you. Like his character kind of grew on me over time, and at the end it was kind of sad to see things how they happen. But yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of liked him as a character.
I was sad to see Skrillex go as well.
Yeah, but he wanted an adventure, so he definitely got one.
Yeah, Skrillex did indeed get an adventure, but
Skrillex.
yeah, that's what you called him.
Well, that's what's going to be named Skrillex.
So yeah, on board here, he was training with the little floating remote with Blue Max. I also liked here. There's a moment here where like Blue Max like swears, and Han's like, "Oh, just because I can speak like that, Blue Max doesn't mean you do." He's like treating him like a kid.
I think he said that either at the second book, Han Solo's. He said it in one of the other books. He's done the exact same thing.
Yeah, checking Blue Max doesn't want him to rub off on him. After that, so this is where they find out about the whole complication with the log disk being in one of the vaults controlled by the mining operation there. And they basically have to go in to the check in and basically get it out of a deposit box. This is where Hosty comes into play. because she can pass for her sister Lonnie and go and retrieve the deposit. So she gets herself dolled up here with a nice dress and makeup, and when she walks out so Baldur can see her, Han, naturally is, somewhat impressed by how she looks, She thinks she looks attractive. And Hosti immediately just tells him to fuck off.
Yeah, she again becomes a cunt for no apparent reason.
Yes, I guess she just wanted Han to act like, oh, you're an ugly whore.
Well, the way she was acting, in this entire book, I kind of wish Han just kicked her ass, in the hyperspace, but
Well,
I mean, I just can't stand that. Like people who like that little shitty remarks for no reason. They just get on my nerves.
Yeah, acting like he was the one who killed her sister.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he was responsible. Blah blah blah. It's like, shut up, Hosty. Just shut up.
Yeah, hasta la vista. Okay, so chapter 6. When they get down, there's actually a cool thing here. They don't really do this play by play. They kind of summarize this, but they have this whole plan here for how they're going to distract the guards on Delalt so Hosti can get in position to get the deposit box. They have this whole plan they concoct to get into this bartering war with the little rundown people here on Delalt. Do you remember this?
Yeah, it's just pretty much his planet is really downtrodden, and
It
the
sucks.
buildings
They describe.
like
Go on.
yeah. Well, yeah, let me take over for a minute. It's pretty much described here as probably back in Zim's day, it was pretty much a fortified city, and there was grand structures and stuff. And now, no, most of the buildings are in disarray, either falling apart or ruins. There's no I don't think there's any electric at all, or any kind of running water. So we're talking it's pretty bad here.
Mm-hmm.
And the only building that was huge was that it was a storage building.
Yeah, that was just. They also mentioned how there was monorails that were completely abandoned.
Yeah, this place, places where anti-air defenses would be crumbled and ruined. It just disarrayed real bad.
What a shame. So they get into this whole thing here. This entire exchange between Baldur and one of the Delaltian people here, it reminds me of a Memory TV, which is kind of like Middle Eastern C-SPAN, right? Because they were saying stuff like, "Oh, I swear a pox on you and all those of your genes," or something like that. They were just going biblical with their insults, dude.
Yeah, it was back and forth while Hosty went to the vault here to get the little recording. But yeah, they also they surrounded the warehouse with this guy's cousins with these really crude slug throwers.
This sounds so ghetto. They just landed on the Louisiana planet or the Mississippi planet.
I think it's a little worse than that, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the Maryland planet.
No, I think it's more the Arizona planet,
But yeah, I also wanted to mention here that Skinix is a funny little interjection when Baldur is haggling with the dude. I should also mention what they're haggling over in the first place. They're haggling over the price to land the Falcon there for how long, right?
No, the whole dispute is this little piece of shit who owns this warehouse, this described as a short fat man with really bad teeth, told them that they cannot unload their cargo and use his warehouse for barely anything, right? But then he was then he wants to charge some outrageous, fee with his, when his balls drop on his cousins with the little rifles are behind him now, and they have to haggle back and forth, and blah blah blah, and yeah, it just turns into something like that.
Yeah, it sounded like you were in a situation like that. The way you described it, you sounded very immersed in your annoyance.
But I mean, it's kind of it's irritating for anybody. They tell you one thing and you put your stuff in there, oh yeah, now it's going to be what did he ask? He asked something outrageous to keep the stuff there. It's between 10 and 20,000 credits. I'm reading, thinking to myself, this place is already dilapidated, and you want to charge that much credits to keep their stuff in your shitty warehouse? No,
you better watch out. There might be a fucking Baldur's revenge.
Yeah, something revenge. But yeah, they kind of have like, what did he say? Like he was going to go see the mediators or something.
Yeah, whoever runs that shithole. I wanted to mention before I forget. There's a funny interjection from Skinnix where he can seize
Really?
the he says basically as they're going back and forth, like he wants to get in on the action of this argument. You know, he's swept up in the energy, so he just shouts out, "Oh, devourer of eggs!" at the Delaltian there, and they all kind of just stop arguing and look over at him like, "Oh, what?" And I
That's,
thought that
that's
was
about
funny.
right. Yeah, didn't he have auto tune too when you said that?
Shut up. Skrillex doesn't even use auto tune, does he? What are you talking about?
I don't know. This is Skrillex for like
He
a
does
long time.
dubstep, not fucking auto tune.
Whoops. Oh fuck! All right, let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on.
No, I'm gonna leave that in. I'm gonna make that the opening.
Yeah, do it. I don't care. It's good as shit.
Uh, okay, I got my notes here. So, Hosty goes and she tries to get the log disk out of the deposit box, but there's a complication. It is now suddenly voice locked. She needs a voice imprint from Lonnie to get into it, which is not going to work. So she comes back to the Falcon and basically says, "Yeah, we're kind of screwed." Han is pissed. He wants to just blast into that vault and get the fucking treasure. They warn him against that naturally because it has all types of complications. And so they kind of just decide to, all right, let's just go out and eat and think of something more clandestine. And that's when they get ambushed by the twins and their muscle. And they all get surrounded there.
Yeah, they get surrounded. And how'd they get out of it? I think then they all surround them because all the people kind of like it was like a ghost town.
Mm.
And they walk out and are like, oh yeah, something's wrong here. And they got jumped by all these armed goons. And then like, oh yeah, surrender, blah 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 blah. Then I think didn't Blue Man? No, it was Bullocks came out of the. This is one I think I had to like read a few times. Like, describe how this happened.
Yeah, it's basically everyone surrounded. Bollocks is coming down the ramp, but inside Blue Max is like quickly thinking of a plan here, and his plan is to get them out of here. Okay, I'm gonna play this really like high pitched sound to take
Yeah,
them off guard.
like sonic
Uh,
weaponry.
yeah, that's actually a good way to describe it. But at the same time, he's bringing back the training remote to fire off some lasers at the people around there. And this is actually where everyone just starts going apeshit, beating the hell out of their captors there, taking their weapons. It's kind of a free for all for a little bit there. Chewbacca kind of gets like the Worf effect and just gets his ass beat by the fucking big ass Egon Foss here.
Yeah.
So he's not fucking happy about that. But they
Well, the Egom, the guy just it was described as he came up behind the Chewie, kind of hit him in the back, kind of like a sneaky bastard.
yeah, it's funny he's that big and that sneaky.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of like big people out there that you think, oh yeah, that guy can never be sneaky, but it's like you underestimate the size.
Are you a big sneaky guy?
For you.
So yeah, that's where that chapter ends with them making a run for it. They reconvene later on in the city in the next chapter, and this is where it kind of gets dicey. But basically, they concoct a plan here to try and fool them into thinking they're dead, and they get on. They called it a lighter, which I guess is just some type of small aircraft.
Yeah.
And they basically concoct a thing here where Han pre-programs it to basically fly off as another ship came in and blew it up, thinking they were still on board. And Han notices during all of this that the fucking Falcon is being stolen by the mine operating criminals here, and he's pissed. He wants his ship back, obviously.
Yeah. But they were described. They actually had to after that happened. This actually sounds pretty miserable because they're outside in shelter somewhere, but they were still wet, and it was like downpouring, almost like drizzling in a way. Like, well, no, what's the word? Not drizzle, but it was sleeting a little bit too, and raining, and it was like really cold and everything. And they were trying to think about a way to get the ship back. But the mining camp where the Falcon will be at was described. It was like 100 kilometers away.
It was far, far away.
Yeah, so they could, obviously by the time they got there, the Falcon would already be disassembled or destroyed.
Yeah, because the mine
So
operators don't know. They think they actually got the log disc and hit it on the Falcon, but they actually didn't.
they didn't get a chance to even get the log disc.
Yeah.
So they concoct some plan, and we also forgot to mention that there's also a second species on this planet. Just think of like what was the
They were
name of the
called
species?
they were called the swimming people of Delalt, which is really long, so you could just call them the swimmers.
Yeah, well, they look like Loch Ness monsters, and we've seen a
Yes.
picture of them. I'm going to call them the Loch Ness monsters for simple sake. So they go down to the dock, and their human guy was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just handling stuff on the dock here," because he's like kind of like the dock master. So he's like, "Go talk to this other Loch Ness monster that kind of like ferries people across back and forth." Well, he talks to the guy. It was some weird name, like what did it start with? It's like Zeta
The
something.
first guy, the first swimmer they talked to was Kazarax, right?
No, Kazaras is the old one.
Really? I thought the old one was Shazine.
I, you sure about that? I thought Sajim was the young one.
Pretty sure. Well, it doesn't matter. They're fucking Loch Ness people.
Yeah,
Who
we'll
cares?
just, for a simple sake, let's just call them both Loch Ness number one, number two, or young. So the young Loch Ness monster was like, "Oh, you can cross here for like 40, what was it, dolt or something, like the local currency." And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's too much." So they turn around and go back, and then he kind of stops and looks over, and there's another Loch Ness monster person, but they're older. And Han's like, "Oh, what about that guy?" And the Dock Master was like, "Oh, you don't want to ride with him. It's dangerous. If it's no, it's good for you." Blah blah. Kind of give him like a little underhanded threat. So Han's like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, whatever, buddy." So he goes over and he talks to the old Loch Ness monster man, and it turns out that he will do it for cheaper, but he wants to. How is it described? Pretty much to give you a rundown, everybody, that the young Loch Ness monster at the dock there has kind of an operation going where he kind of like shoehorns people into using like the humans on the dock to kind of shoehorn into paying these outrageous sums to get transport across the lake. It's kind of like a little
Yeah,
operational
it's a
side of
fucking
it.
racket.
Yeah.
Coercion.
And the old Loch Ness monster is actually the young one's uncle, and he's used to be the big dick of the lake here. So he's like, yeah, I'm not. I can swim wherever I want. I'm gonna have to show him up and show him who's the real boss of this lake. So
It's the
I
most
was like,
low
okay,
stakes rivalry.
yeah, it's basically they got looped into some Loch Ness monster battle. But let's continue on. So Hamlet's like, "Oh yeah, let me go get the others. I accept. Let's because you're cheaper and you can get us across the lake." And the guy agrees, but there's a stipulation that you can't really kill people in this. So like Han can't like whip out his blaster and start blasting people because when he gets the others, the the dock master and the other gang running this little racket they had going on. It's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna stop you. You can't go to the old Loch Ness monster." So they actually get into like a little tizzy. Obviously, Chewie kicks ass, and everybody kicks ass, and they're punching all these people, and they run over to the old Loch Ness monster, and they're like, "Okay, get on." So they hop on like this barge raft thing to carry them all across this lake. Well, they also got looped in. The old Loch Ness monster stops in this lake. And Helmut's like, "Okay, what's going on here now?" The old Loch Ness monster was like, "Well, waiting for the young one," or whatever his name was. And for why? And it was described as like they're having this race, right? Across like to see who's like the more stronger, more capable Loch Ness monster.
Yes.
So the young one gets the gang kind of forces him onto this little barge, right? And they swim over and they have like this little race. Well, when the race is happening, the two barges have the people on it, and they're trying to sabotage the other. And Han uses the blaster to shoot um, the axe head of one of the dock master himself because he's trying to slice at the rope that the Loch Ness monster guy was trying to drag. But Han shot the axe, and they did a lot of back and forth kind of shenanigans there until like they stop him in the lake. Then the two Loch Ness monsters, they do battle, and that's what they do. It's pretty much, it was described kind of in a very unique, because I like that part because like they use like their heads to slam together real
It's like
hard, and
giraffe fighting.
yeah, and like using teeth to like kind of like bite into each other, and other stuff. But the old one proved that he was more skillful and than the younger one. Obviously, the younger one went back and defeat to the doc, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he's still my nephew, but I'm gonna have to show him a thing or two some more." So that's basically the Loch Ness monster person battle thing. To me, I mean, I enjoyed that part. I know you told me you didn't really like it too much, but I kind of liked it. It was kind of unique in a way. I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's not horrible, but I don't know. It kind of feels weird on the pacing. Not that it lasts too long, but I wasn't really too interested in reading that. I wanted to get to the plundering of the Queen of Ranroon.
Well, Loch Ness monster people don't come every day, my friend. So when they use their heads as kind of like a bludgeon and smack, into one another, it's kind of entertaining to say the least.
Yes, it at least was entertaining a bit. Um, Also, when they conclude that skirmish there, during all that commotion, when the raft they're on is getting rocked around, Hosty's hood gets knocked back, and there's actually other passengers on this raft, which is kind of like a blink and you missed it a fact, but like there's like a random person on there who like looks over at Hosty and is like, "Oh wow, you look just like Lonnie. Oh yeah, I saw her coming over to the mountains some days ago. She was doing something over there." And the group was kind of like, "Oh, that's strange. Okay, we have some type of lead over there because what was Lonnie doing over at that mountain?"
Yeah, she took an interest in the mountain, and it
Yes.
was described as you go up to the mountain, you never return because blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, maybe let's go to the mountain. So when they get to their destination, they go up the mountain.
I mean, I guess it's on their way to the mining camp, so may as well.
Yeah, because the mining camps are described as across this lake, there's a mountain range, and across the mountain range, that's where the mining camp is.
Yes. So, in the next chapter, they're continuing on for some time now. They stop to make camp, and Hosty asks Baldur why he keeps calling Han this nickname, Slick. And do you want to do this part here? Or do you want me to explain the whole long story?
I mean, well, I mean, we can condense it. I mean, we can go back and forth. Pretty much, Han was. This was back in Han's academy days, and it was this like Baldur was talking about how uh, the new like overseer, commanding officer here was kind of like a, how's it described? He's kind of like a preppy, like kind of uptight guy,
Yeah.
and he wanted people to do like some simulation using some like really old model. What kind of was it? It was
A U-33 or something.
yeah, it was some sort of like old freighter or something of the sort. So Han, being the young kid here, was like, okay, everybody, let's get in here. So it was Han, Baldur, and this new overseer on this ship, and Han was doing like all these maneuvers and stuff. And this ship is like really old,
Mm-hmm.
so they wanted to land, so the landing gear didn't come down all the way, and they're getting all scared, like, "Oh, we're gonna crash," blah blah blah. And young Han was like, "Oh, yeah, that's a common issue with this model. We just have to do some, some what was it? It was some G's to kind
Yeah,
of
he,
get
he
the
was going to try and do these, like, aerodynamic maneuvers to try and rejigger that landing gear to come out.
yeah." And that's what he did, and that's why that's the first time that Baldur called Han slick. What was it had a passage. Yeah, we'll just see what Slick here will do.
Mm-hmm.
And they backed up, and of course the commanding officer guy is kind of scared, getting white in the face because Han's doing all these maneuvers and doing some
He
like
kind
G turns
of,
and
the
stuff.
commander kind of set him up to fail because I think he intentionally had malfunctions on some of his, like, cadet tests in the past because
Yeah,
we need realistic simulations when we're training them.
yeah. So like Han kind of like outshone like the test here, and he actually got the landing gear fixed and was able to land, and that's how the name Slick came to head now. But that was a little tidbit. It was pretty neat of what Han was like in his academy days.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool story. Um, let's see here. There's a change in perspective, actually. It actually goes to Galandro for a little bit, as it's just basically establishing that he's on Delalt now, following their trail so we can kill Han. And that pretty much concludes that chapter. And the next one, they spot a little landing field down below as they're traveling through these mountains. And it's very suspicious when they arrive here. They get down, and upon closer inspection, it's all like fake. It's all like prop like, right? And Skinnix, good old Skrillex, he's the first one that kind of falls down with this weird fatigue and torpor, and he goes down unconscious. Then Badur gets it, he goes down, and Han doesn't know what's happening, but he notices that nothing's happening to the droid, so it's obviously some type of thing that only targets organics. So he tells like Bollocks to try and do something, but by that time they're all going down, and the last thing he sees before he goes unconscious is this like, how would you describe it? It was like a primitive like flight helmet with tubes and shit hanging around it with like markings all over it. All these people like
Yeah.
gathered around them and kind of drug them out of there. And the next thing that happens is they wake up. Oh, I also wanted to mention real quick for the world building shit. This is the first mention of web weavers on Chewie's homeworld that is mentioned here. So it's another foundational piece of shit he put in there because Kashyyyk's like bottoms area is like a deadly hellhole, and web weavers one of the things
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you anybody played the Knights of the Republic first game, you would understand it has a lot of shit in the bottom.
So they wake up in a cell now in this primitive type of area here, and they're all trying to figure out what the hell happened. Bollocks isn't there. It's just all of the organics. They don't have any of their shit. Hosty is like banging on the door, angry, and she doesn't want to just sit there and rot. She wants to get the treasure, make things right with this whole adventure here since her sister died for it. But she eventually like tires herself out. She sits down, and this is where like Han goes to comfort her, and they kind of have this brief romantic interaction that I didn't really buy that much.
Yeah, it is kind of like, what the hell? This girl's a bitch to you the entire time, Han gets one kiss in before she goes back to bitch mode.
I mean, I'm not sure why he even went for it to begin with.
Yeah, I was like, screw this girl. Like, she's not even attractive. Like, being, like the personality wise, like, she's kind of, a nasty person.
Yeah, she just derides Han about how, oh, you're not a man who can just settle down once you get the treasure. You're going to be off doing some other thing, You don't really have any connections. Well, I got Chewie. Oh, well, that doesn't count. He's just a friend.
It's like, bitch. It's like I really didn't like her at that point. I'm like, okay, just shut up. Don't care about you no more.
Yeah. I mean, she's acting like, see, it's weird. It's like Han acts like he's this horrible guy. She acts like he's this horrible guy, but he has this track record of the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, he could just sit there and tell her about how he freed everyone from Star's End. That was pretty nice of him.
But she also said there's also passage where she's like, "Oh, I've seen guys like you. You can charm your way out of anything, but you always leave people behind, or blah blah blah, or you always use them." I'm like,
he doesn't use Chewbacca.
Yeah, it's
use
like
Badur. He doesn't use the droid. Well, he doesn't use the droids in a bad sense.
Yeah, so it's like, why is she spouting all this vitriol at like Han for no reason?
I don't get this character.
No, I think she's just there just to be a bitch. To be honest with you, like she has no original qualities. Like
if she wasn't there, the team would just have too much cohesion.
It'd operate too well.
Yes. Skinnix tries to lighten the mood there by playing a song. He says something that makes the group laugh, but I forget what was so funny about it.
Yeah, Skrillex plays a little tune because he has
plays
like
some
these
dubstep.
He plays some dubstep in the cell. But in seriousness, his species, he has like these little like pouches on his persons, right? He has his little instruments that he plays the little tune. Han was like, "Oh yeah, no, I remember what it was." Made everybody laugh. After the tirade that Han got, um, Skrillex was saying like, "Oh, my species, we get a lot of pheromones to attract mates and stuff like that." And Han was like, "I wish I had more pheromones," and that's when everybody laughed, in the cell there.
Yeah. And their laughter is broken up immediately as Bollocks is shoved into their cell, and they merely swarm him with questions. All he gets out at the end of the chapter is they're going to be human sacrifices.
Dun, dun, dun.
But then we just read the next chapter and he explains more. And this is where we learn basically that these people that have captured them are the inbred descendants of the crew of the Queen of Ranroon. And they've basically just been hiding out here and probably just kidnapping people and sacrificing them for this weird fucked up religion they have where they think if they
Yeah,
sacrifice people to like their radio signals it'll boost it and they'll get a message out for Zim or whoever from his empire to return and bring them and take them out of there. It's
they're
pretty
waiting for something called the High Command, which is
yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty fucked up. um And Bollocks, however, explains that they have this weird reverement of droids. So he kind of has some pull with these guys, but not really. But he's able to like utilize it as they're getting moved out for the sacrifice. He opens up his chest and he allows Blue Max to play like holograms of the Queen of Ranroon and other data they have on it to kind of like dazzle and distract them as Bollocks goes around and he kind of starts freeing his companions there out of a little cage they have him on. Real quick, I wanted to mention there was a weird detail here when they were getting ushered out of the little barrens or warrens that these primitives were, or not primitives, but I guess crewmen were living in. Han walked by and he saw like children in there being like hypnotized, like on this. He called it hyper imprinting. They were showing them like colors and symbols, beaming it into their brain or some shit. It was quite weird.
brainwashing kids and whatnot. I mean, I guess it's part of like the MO here.
Yeah.
I guess being stuck in the mountain. I mean, the previous crew of the Queen of Ramrod,
Cream of Ramrock, shut up. So Bollocks gets them out of the cage. There's a brief firefight here as they sneak around trying to recover some weapons. Chewie takes a big gong that these people had here, piles everyone on, and they ride off down this snowy slope in this scene here. That was actually pretty cool. I like this, where they're going down to this gong. It had felt very much like an adventure serial or something like that. It got the adventure tone right in this moment here. But
something out of Indiana Jones in that part was pretty neat.
yeah, I like that part a lot. Yeah, he does chases pretty well for the most part, Brian Daly, except for like in Han Solo's Revenge. He knows how to keep them exciting for the most part.
Han Solo's Revenge is not the star of his trio of books.
No. So their little race down the mountain here on the slope ends when they hit this little rock as they're slowing down. They all tumble to the ground. Next chapter, they pick themselves up, and Skinnix starts going over the gong, and he realizes, oh, this is a piece of the Queen of Ranroon. I recognize all this stuff here. And before they can really ponder that, they're attacked by their pursuers as, well, actually, it's more of a patrolling member of these crewmen here. They call themselves the Survivors. I should mention these Survivors have a patrol out there, and one of them comes by and like, what was it? It was a little speeder craft of some sort. I forget exactly what they called it, but he's shooting at them from where he is at his position. It's dark, so they can't really see too much, so they kind of have to like piece together where he's shooting from, get an angle on where the flash is, and when they get his location, they all just pile on with all their weapons. Like when they get over to his body, they describe like Chewbacca's bowcaster hit him, Han's blaster, Badur had like two like I imagine them as like revolver blasters or something, like long-barreled revolvers that he fired at him. And oh yeah, and Hosty had a disruptor
Yeah.
too. So that
Yeah,
dude got
disruptors are very common in these books, which I
mm-hmm.
want to remind the listeners here. Like disruptors, and really, they're like illegal esque weapons because of what they do. Like normal blasters just blast, kind of a hole into, but disruptors literally just like rip apart like your atoms and stuff. Like really.
We're getting some lag here. Not good, not good. Um, well, let's see if this will resolve itself. Okay, so you were going on again about something I didn't care to listen to because you suck. No, I'm kidding. What are you saying?
With that, I just want my mind went blank. I forget. Oh no, I was talking about disruptors, about how they're outlawed and what they do. Like the regular blaster just blasts you, but the disruptors like literally rip apart your atoms and shit.
Yes, and Hosty was firing that along with several other weapons at their lone pursuer. They get over and they take over his speeder craft there and all his stuff, and they start moving on as they notice more of those survivors are chasing them down the slope. And they come through this little gully, and they find where the droid detachment for the Queen of Ranroon is, because the Queen of Ranroon is equipped with like 1,000 war droids to protect its cargo, and they just have them out in the open, apparently, all stood together. And as they're looking down, watching this, Hosty recognizes one of the people down there. Among the survivors, she sees the assistant steward of the treasury, who was basically the person who runs the little vault where the deposit box is. And she sees she's talking with one of the survivors. And they're kind of piecing together that dude is working with them, but they're not sure exactly to the details of how. That steward dude addresses the army of war droids and basically tells them, hey, go over to the mining camp where those criminals are and kill everyone and everything there and destroy everything. And the leader of the droids there, they call him the Corps Commander, he basically sounds off in that order and they all start marching over there to destroy them. Han is basically just thinking of the Falcon at this point, and he's just running over to try and stop that before it happens. And Blue Max and Bollocks hang back for a second there, and they actually sneak over, and Bollocks tries in vain to try and persuade the commander droid to not attack them, but he doesn't get through to them, and they continue on in their march. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna describe these war droids, if you allow me to.
Go ahead.
They're pretty much like 8 feet tall, and they have like Gatling disruptors, and they also have like really big rockets on this. Sorry, I'm lagging a little bit. Hold on.
Yeah, it's lagging pretty bad. You're trying to get a joke in, but your internet's not agreeing with you.
Yeah, well, yeah, Discord's not agreeing with any of us. But anyway, no. These droids kind of like they have like a skull on their chest. They're kind of like tallish kind of droids. They kind of like they don't look like any battle droids like anybody would think. Like from the Clone Wars, people think battle droids from that. But they kind of look like a little bit more of like oldish kind of battle droids. Like it's kind of hard to describe these things.
Yeah. They're. I mean, that's pretty much a good approximation of them. They looked way cooler in my head, because I imagined them having the skulls for their heads instead of just on their chest, like they're Necrons or something
Yeah.
from 40K.
Yeah, and honestly, like in my head, I thought they kind of looked a little bit better. But when you showed me the picture, I was like, "Yeah, this looks like something out of some Saturday morning cartoon."
It always ends up like that. You imagine something cool in these books, you look up the official art, it's lame.
Well, for like that, I keep calling him Skrillex. I'm just going to keep calling it. His species is pretty neat because, like, I didn't picture in my mind that he would be like a furry caterpillar like being, but lo and behold, he was. So
Yeah. Brian Daly knows how to keep it inventive with the species he introduced.
it's pretty neat.
Yep. So in the next chapter, Han meets. Well, I shouldn't say meets up, but he starts trying to reason with Juwok, the female twin that's leading these criminal miners here, and he's kind of in cover at a safe distance negotiating with her, and he's basically telling her, hey, you're all about to get your shit pushed in. Let's try and be reasonable here and try to prevent this. And she's like, no, I'm going to kill you all, and we're going to take the treasure. even though they don't have the log disk, unfortunately. And before they can really get further, the droids arrive, and whoop, no. Before
Yeah, you're
that,
forgetting one big detail.
yeah, the well, these villains are so memorable, but Han shoots down her brother Rala, who tried to strafe them in a ship he was using here, because Han had picked up this very big, heavy blaster of some sort. I forget what they called it.
It was a heavy assault rifle meant for some species that's supposed to be really large. So the recoil on this thing was pretty,
He had to like
pretty.
set it down on like a rock or something and aim it to even shoot
Yeah,
it down.
he had to put no, he had to like set it down, put the bipod or the rifle up, and like try to like prop it on a rock and aim at the ship as it's coming toward him.
Yeah, it's like he's basically manning a turret. That's
Yeah,
basically
or
what he's
like
doing.
yeah, or like just like a large caliber rifle in our day and age, like 50 cal esque type of thing.
Yep. There's a brief moment here where Galandro appears and tries to reason with Han, who of course refuses, and that's where all hell kind of breaks loose with these droids attacking this installation here, and it really just descends into chaos. And
Yeah,
Bollocks and Blue Max, uh, there's actually a moment here where Blue Max issues some type of like code to the droid commander, and he convinces him to spare the Falcon in their rampage here. There is some pretty neat descriptions of this chaos here. Do you have any that stood out to you? Because I got a few.
I like how the droids like went in there, and not only did they kill like the people, but they're also dismantling like the buildings and the ships as well. Like literally, like because these droids also had blasters, but a lot of times when they were in close range, they just like ripped things apart and just
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're
So
like
yeah, that's memorable
Terminators.
to me. Yeah, they just like it's memorable. Like instead of using their blasters, they literally like ripped some like freighters apart that were parked there, and like ripped some buildings apart. And I think they killed an entire like because they had a turret crew set up. They
Mm-hmm.
got wiped out fast.
Yeah, there was one scene where some of the miners are trying to fight back, and they take this giant like mining vehicle with these giant treads to like run them over and crush them. And that when that happens, it's like if you've ever played any RTS and like controlled a bunch of units and all right click them to attack one unit, that's basically what happens here as they all turn and fire at the mining vehicle and just destroy its engine and fuselage.
Yeah, there was like a large explosion. Han kills one with that large rifle before it's totally depleted.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's also a cool scene there of some type of insectoid species. They tried bum rushing one of these droids, like three of them, and it describes the droid like ripping off their pincers and like pushing them out of the way. But they still managed to get that one because it was still too damaged from the assault. But still, some pretty cool descriptions there. This chaos.
Yeah, and like Han was trying to like fall back with the rest.
Oh, is it lagging again?
They meet Blue Mag. Oh, okay.
Oh no, we're good going.
He meets like Bullock's Bulmax, and he's telling Solo and like the rest of the gang there is like, yeah, you just move on, leave without me, because they have to. Why didn't they hop in the Falcon immediately? Like, what was
They
the
weren't
reason
they weren't
why?
over to the Falcon. It was across the bridge where the barracks was.
Okay. Yeah. So like all the workers and stuff try to get across this chasm, and across this chasm is where the barracks is where the survivors are holding off for one last stand. Or as Han was running there, the female twin decides to swing her rifle at Han, and they
Oh,
get into like a little fight.
real quick, we should mention before that Galandro saves Han's life as he was about to get killed by one of these Terminators, and Han kind of repays the favor by warning him about a Terminator behind Galandro, which he kills, and he kind of
Yes.
Galandro makes notice of this, smirks at Han, and says something, and runs off to go kill more of these droids. That's going to be important later.
It might rant, but yes. So yeah, so the sister is fighting Han, but Asani, since her sister got killed
Hosty.
by these guys, Hasti or Asani, I don't care. They pretty much have a little cat fight, fighting there, and it's described as like she was doing some maneuvers, and she literally like threw her like against like this bridge. In my mind, it reminded me of an old style like what's the word? It's like have like the rope as
Yeah.
the you know what I'm talking about. And like the twin hit the rope and kind of like fell
Rebounded.
against her own weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of fell off the bridge. She was screaming. So that was the end of the criminal twins.
Yep. Juwok fell right down into the Death Star 2's reactor, blew up, but transferred her consciousness to a clone that shows up in Juwok's Revenge, which is the fourth novel that Daly wrote after this.
Yeah, and I think she controls like an entire like fleet of like these Death Star robots,
Yes.
and pretty much it has like the Death Star super laser in their chest, and like there's a big nuclear missile coming out.
It's actually all just giant Queen of Ran runes.
Yeah, and they call it Queen of Ragoons sometimes too, and like it's pretty neat because like these flying robots. They got like 2 minute Death Stars, right? Goes up like a galaxy gun right in the middle. So
Yeah,
you know,
Sun Crusher missiles.
yeah, so they shoot out some cross. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Dude, we got to do the Jedi Academy trilogy at some point. It's so stupid that the spectacle of it is just so enjoyable to talk about. It's like it's almost on the same tier as Dark Empire.
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
It's pretty wild, dude. Yeah.
Oh my god.
There's some stuff in there that'll get you fucking howling with laughter, but that's for another day.
All right.
Yep, so Juwok is dead. Uh Chewbacca and Igom have a little honor duel where no one intervenes, and Chewie finally kills him. Do you remember how he described killing that dude? Because I had a hard time picturing it. Did he like
Pretty
snap his neck?
much he got him in a place where he choked his ass from like behind or something on this bridge and was like using his weight and kind of crushed his back or something like that.
Hmm.
But it was kind of brutal in a way. Like Chewie finished him off by crushing, kind of like choking him and crushing him on his back. Because it described as like he was kind of pulling on his back and like the fear in his face, you know. And yeah, Chewie just went, you know, and that was it.
Yeah. Just goes to show that Wookiees don't need to use their claws to completely fuck you up.
Yeah, Wookiees are quite terrifying.
Yep. So after that, they're about to run over and get the Falcon, but they notice that the war droids have finished destroying everything on the other side of the camp and are about to head on the bridge to kill them. But Bollocks actually sabotage the bridge, and under their own weight, all the droids walking on it just causes it to collapse and fall over to their doom.
Yeah, it was described as they were marching in place, and this bridge couldn't take the marching, and it kind of collapsed the entire bridge.
Yes. What a shame.
Yeah, well,
It's a good thing they didn't have like jetpacks, or that would have been very awkward.
yeah, that's very true.
uh, I'm surprised some of them didn't just try and climb up or grab onto anything, really. Because if they're strong enough to like rip apart ships and stuff, it must have been some fall.
Yeah, it's probably like a deep chasm. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So after that, they're about to run over and get over to the Falcon, but Galandro at some point snuck his ass over there, and Han was pissed. He thought Galandro was about to run off with it, but he actually comes over and lands down and speaks at them, and he actually wants to get in on this treasure hunt instead of killing Han here. And Hossie is again very reluctant to agree with this, but Han agrees to this despite himself and what he knows of Galandro. So they team up for this last little section here to secure the treasure. Now, is there any thoughts you wanted to cut in here with, Spark?
You should never trust this guy.
No, you
He
shouldn't.
should have never trusted this little sniveling little shit.
I mean, put it into perspective. This dude used the resources of the corporate sector authority to chase you across space just so he could find and kill you. And now you're just going to be all buddy-buddy with him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He should have trusted this man ever.
Yeah. But he continues on with it. Then the last chapter here, they corner the steward and they get the rundown from him that he was basically hypnotized as a child to embed himself among the Delultian people so he could keep an eye on the treasure and whatnot, keep people out of it. They coerce him into giving up what they need to get the log disc, And I believe it's Galandra who just outright fucking kills him once they get what they need, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did.
trustworthy dude, this Galandra.
Yeah, yeah. They decided to trust this guy. This guy who literally like, no, I'll just move on.
So they take the Falcon, they go over, I think they blow open the surrounding area to the vault.
Yeah, just like they use the quad cannon and just destroy. Like they literally tear a hole in this thing.
Now, why is it that going into this vault is just Skinnix, Han, and Galandro? Do you remember?
They needed Skrillex or Skinnex because of he can read the language from like the pre-Republic days, right? Gleandro wanted to make sure he was getting his cut, and Han obviously he wanted to get his cut, so that's why. But I keep calling him Skrillex. Fuck it. Skrillex told them that this vault kind of has defenses, so you might not able to take your weapon in there, or
But
some other
what I'm
thing.
saying is, why don't they bring the whole crew in there? Why is it just the three of them?
It's just I forget.
Just a
It was just
contrivance, I guess.
I think they were scouting ahead while the others were on board the Falcon, waiting for an all clear. Yeah, that's what it was. They were wanting to clear out the vault, make sure everything was in there safe for the all clear, and then they're going to signal them to come back and get the
Oh,
stuff
I
out.
got not risk tripping a trap and killing everyone.
Yes,
I guess
because
that makes
remember, like I
sense.
told you before, that this had automatic detection for like blasters and stuff, so it was kind of dangerous in a sense. So they couldn't really, rush in there and get killed.
Well, those measures will come in handy here as, excuse me, as they're looking around. And Skinnix basically says, "Oh, yep, this is the place. This is where the treasure is. We found the location." Galandro picks this time to challenge Han to a duel. He betrays him here. Who could have seen this coming? I was quite shocked, Spark. I was actually shaking when I read this. Well, how about you?
Yeah, I was kind of frightened to see Han get shot. I was wondering if this was the end of Han Solo right here, which also made me mad about this character because Galandro literally used his resources and everything. And you know what his motivation was? I want to knock you down a peg or two, Solo. Blah blah blah. I'm taking you back to the.
Well,
Yeah,
Badur says this guy lives and dies by his reputation. But I mean,
yeah.
like, Badur went through this whole, like, spiel about all the people that Galandro fucking destroyed. Like, I think he's fine. There's this one blot on his record of getting made a hostage by Solo.
It wasn't even that
I
much of
mean, you,
an
you could
insult.
easily, like, get your rep back. But whatever.
Right.
He challenges him to this duel, and when I first read this, I thought Han was actually going to win, but Han actually loses this fucking duel. He
Yeah,
gets
he
shot in
he
his
near
arm.
misses
Yep.
shoulder.
He went into great detail, too, about their movements as they were getting ready for their draw. Like he mentioned how Han like had all these movements of like twisting his hip slightly, moving his arm, shifting his chest, but like Galandro literally only had to move his arm. He had no unnecessary movements, which kind of worked against Han here.
Yeah.
So after he shoots him, he basically just fucking gloats over him like, "Oh, first now I'm gonna go kill Skinnix, and then I can be rid of you."
Yeah, it's kind of the guy is automatically like the biggest douchebag in the entire series.
Yeah, it was kind of fucked up because like Skinnix didn't have anywhere to go. He was just curled up in the corner, shaking, thinking he was
I
about to fucking
think
die.
Skinnix kind of he knew what will happen next. May I
Go ahead.
describe? Well, he covered himself up and he's kind of shaken, and of course, Mister Big Dick Gunslinger thought he was going to get an easy kill. Well, remember the automatic defense systems I talked about? Well, old Glandra here turned into a nice thing of crispy bacon as all these blaster bolts just rained upon his ass to the point where he became extra crispy, like dark
Crunchy.
charred. That's what he gets, piece of shit.
That was a pretty cool death scene. Imagining him just standing there, silhouetted by all these lasers just piercing into him.
Good runs.
Yep, and that is the end of Galandro. And following that, they all reconvene, getting themselves healed up. And Skinnix basically reveals, or no, it's Badur who realizes, all this treasure in here is outdated crap that is no way valuable in any way. It's
Yeah.
like ancient Mytag crystals that were used for like proto shields. It's just nothing that'll get you a pretty penny.
Yeah,
But
back in the day it was worth something,
yeah,
but now, no.
But like, it's not all bad because Skinnix is saying, there's still enough art and history and record tapes here to basically make an entire career out of. So there's still that. He offers Baudur and Hosty to join him in setting up the things for his college and research there, because it's going to be like years of getting all that cataloged and noted down. So, they agree to join him in doing that. He offers it to Bollocks and Blumax as well, who also agree to stay with Skinnix there, working things out. Han and Chewie, however, this is where they kind of have to depart from the group here. That isn't the life for them. University and archaeology shit. So they basically walk off into the sunset for the next adventure, whatever that may be.
There, Skrillex said, are the real survivors. And that's where it ends.
Yes, I thought Baudur said that.
No, I don't think I think it was Skrillex said that.
Who cares? That is the end of Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. Pretty damn good book. I still love Star's End more, but he ended off the trilogy here in a good way. It felt like a good adventure.
Pretty much like Star's End was the high point, right? So basically you start off at the very highest point, then you go into like the low credits here of like stupidity, but then you shoot back up, right? Again, so it kind of equals out in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Not as much like notes about foundational world building this one, a couple of them here, but I think he was having a lot more fun writing this book than he was Han Solo's Revenge, because Han Solo's Revenge and Star's End released in the same year, so he was probably like crunching to get that second book out there, man.
Yeah, I could tell because Han Solo's Revenge was not. It could have been much better of a like a journey than it was. It wasn't even revenge. Like, was he getting revenge for? Right?
Yeah, he wasn't having fun at all writing that book.
No.
Yeah, well, Galandro kind of had Galandro's revenge in this book.
No, well, it's more like Galandro's comeuppance.
Galandro's karma.
God, he deserved that. He was such a prick, gloating over Han like that. Oh yeah, you're nobody, Han. You're just a lowly smuggler. And it's like, then why'd you waste all the credits hunting him down, you douche?
He must not be a lowly smuggler then.
So, he got, crispified, which is good. But, yeah, coming from me, I do suggest anybody has not read these books, give them a read. They are worth every page. Because I was actually, as I was telling you, Dave, I was sad that this ended. Because it was the characters, Bollocks, Blue Max. I enjoyed it up to the last page. It was
they were
really
very good
book.
Secondary characters.
Yes, like it was kind of sad, like the story ended. Because I actually enjoyed this book. It was a really good read. Like, not a lot of books out there nowadays, at least, have like really good endings, and this was a really good, kind of a good ending for like the characters here. So I do recommend you give this trilogy a read. That's my thoughts.
I don't care how old they are; they're good. A lot of people make fucking excuses that they don't have time to read. A lot, I hear, which sometimes is legitimate. But come on, you can make time to read.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, like, it's either you're lazy or you just don't feel like it. Like, you'd rather watch TV or YouTube, and you go to a Mount Rabbit Hole.
Too many distractions.
Really yeah. But, like, if you do decide to read, right, if you want to get into Star Wars, especially, like, the extended universe, right, because there's a vast amount of books, start with these. These are a perfect entry into the EU, because this is kind of like the start of the EU. So, your starting point could be like the EU starting point. So, I recommend you read it.
I had the basic bitch starter pack introduction to the EU. I just read the Thrawn trilogy to start with.
Yeah, I read Galaxy of Fear, which is I think it's a 10 or 12 book short story Star Wars like horror action adventure is what I used to read, and also the Adventures of like Trioculus and all of them. I also read those books. There's like 3 of those books. That's what I got introduced in the EU.
Yeah, you had the Chad introduction.
Well, as long as you get in the EU, there's really no chat or other option.
No,
like,
there's a hierarchy. There's a totem pole here of fan spark. Get with the times.
Call me old school, but as long as you get into the EU, so
yes,
that's all it counts. Like, just expand it. Like, I mean, for people who don't like the new canon, you're being good hands.
Man,
like,
there's so much that new canon is just not willing to do. Like, it won't take risks. It won't have fun with the material like these old books do. Because, like, you'll have Brian Daly do something here, like casually introducing another species, just name dropping it like that, or,
Yeah.
including all this
Well,
pre-Republic history about Zim the Despot. I mean, I understand this was the early goings, but that's kind of something that all the EU authors did. They weren't afraid to
yeah.
expand the fucking material.
Well, I mean, well nowadays it's all corporate type of stuff. Like you have to like get your canon down so it all fits in like this weird like timeline they have set up, and like especially like if you're not fans of like the newer movies, the sequel trilogy. Like I know I'm not, so it's like it has to base off that, and like it has its own little like canon, the Disney canon.
They relegate so much of new canon to just filling in blanks too, instead of telling like standalone stories. Like you'll
Yeah.
never see something like a Vong War in new canon.
Oh no, you're not going to see nothing like that. Like in the High Republic, what was it? It was Space Vikings. Like,
No one
okay,
cares. No one fucking
yeah.
cares.
Like I kind of they kind of released like the High Republic, in my opinion, at a bad time. Like they shouldn't even release it at all because now like there's like a lot of like the fandom's kind of like up in the air. Like you have like two sides, like the people who don't like the sequel trilogy and then the people who do, and like it's kind of like Disney and these shows getting either like with stuff happening with them. I don't think releasing a book series about space Vikings, hijacking hyperspace lanes is a good idea right now. But
Yeah.
like you said, they should do some like new shit with it. Like,
I know. See,
but
that's what kills me. Like you'll have books like what can I say? For example, Truce to Bakura, where they introduce dinosaurs that steal the souls of people and use it to power their technology as villains in this whole new planet. You
yeah,
won't have stuff like that where they just go to a new planet, set up all these potential new hooks for stories. They're afraid. It just feels like they're so afraid to do stuff like that.
well, like I said, it's like this multi-billion-dollar corporation that's kind of hovering over them, and they can't really like branch out and do their thing without their permission. And it's probably a clusterfuck. I don't know personally what's happening behind the scenes with it, but it doesn't have that. Well, you probably say, "Oh yeah, you're biased," but yeah, like the soul. The EU has a little bit of more soul, in my opinion. But
Yes,
again, this is my opinion. You don't crucify me here, but
it's not perfect. It has its moments of
oh yeah,
retardation.
it has a lot of retarded. Are you kidding me? But it has like a lot of good shining examples of really good Star Wars media, which even if you don't consider the EU canon, right, or if you don't consider this or that canon, at least just give them a read. It's Star Wars. Everybody likes it. I mean, that's why we're doing this because we like Star Wars.
I actually fucking hate Star Wars.
What, you're tricky?
No.
Captain Picard's the best captain.
I like Captain. What's a Captain Star Trek?
You could say Kirk. I mean, he's the most
Yeah, I say Kirk. I like Kirk.
like Kirk.
Yeah, he's my favorite.
I think.
Yes, I've seen literally one episode of Star Trek, and that was the original series.
Of course, for intervals number one.
All right, I think we're done here. I've got nothing else left to say.
Yeah. Last note, like I said before, read the books. Good books. We recommend them both. Oh, actually, all three of them.
Yeah, they're all worth a read. TBH, they're short too. They're not really a huge commitment
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. So just read them, even if you don't got time to read. You can just read like a
You can read
chapter.
them while you're using the bathroom, while you're waiting for something, while you're waiting for something to cook. You can make time.
Yeah, you can just, or read them before bed. That's where your mind's
Yes.
racing throughout your day. Just you pop open your either a book or like your iPad or wherever you use to read. Just read a chapter or two. You don't need to read the entire book. Just read a little bit.
Mm. All right, we've been doing too much good Star Wars. It's time to do some awful Star Wars now, because we're gonna
Oh
move on
Lord.
to Dark Empire.
Oh Lord. I cannot wait about Dark Empire.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm probably gonna start it tonight.
Oh Lord. Yeah, as we're gonna do this, I want to tell you we're probably gonna I'll probably be snipping some pictures and we'll be
Oh
discussing
yes.
the art, and this is trippy as shit.
Yep. So Dark Empire is next. We'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Can't wait.
Bye bye.